All right.
Go for it.
Okay. This is the January 22nd, 2024 Prudential Committee meeting.
You're
I'm
calling to
going to call the meeting to order. The first order of business is the roll call. Mark Lynch is here.
Seth Burdick's here.
Fran.
Present.
Fran is present by Zoom.
Frank Bruins present. Charlie Eager present.
Lisa Haven here.
Lisa Hagan is present as well. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
Oh, no.
Changed the regular justice. Do you remember that?
It's always been that
Okay.
They put it in when we were in school.
Are there any public comments before we begin the agenda?
Yes, there is.
Okay, we need to, just for the sake of the, pardon me, audience members, for the sake of the recording, we need to have only one person speaking at a time. So if I could ask you to either make a public comment or remain silent while we, but please raise your hand if you want to make public comment.
Brian, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Let me know if it's my turn to speak. Sorry, I'm not totally clear on the kind of process between myself and the people in the meeting.
It is your turn to speak.
Great. Thank you. My name is Brian Carroll. I live on Abbey Gate in Catuit. And I'm here because my understanding is that the committee is in the process of considering whether to expend money that was approved already to pay for a study of the different options for the school property, for the school building and the school property. And I'm here to voice my support for the expenditure of that money and the actual kind of following through on the study itself. That property and that building are tremendous resources for the village. And I think it would be a shame to tear down the building without having a kind of full review of what the different options are and what they would cost. I think that would allow for a better informed debate when the time comes about what to do with the actual building and the property. And I think we would benefit from having a kind of shared set of facts that we would get through a formal study by someone who really knows what they're doing. Thank you three very much who are on the committee. We appreciate your time. We know you spend a lot of time and effort doing this, and I appreciate it. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. That is going to be on the agenda a little later too, and we will go into that in more detail. Thank you for that comment. Anyone else?
I have a chat from Jen Levy. She's having a lot of difficulty hearing. Can I just instruct her how she might change that?
Sure.
Jen Levy, can you hear me? No, she can't. She has to change her. Jen Levy, if you go down to the mute button in the lower left of your screen.
I can hear you.
You might be able to use a different speaker.
I can hear you. It's just a little bit backed up.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment at this point?
I do not see any.
I think there's a delay. It might be easier if I call in.
You can try calling in. Yeah, she's very delayed.
Okay.
Does she need the number?
I emailed the number to you this morning.
Okay, the next topic is engaging a procurement officer, and I'm gonna ask Fran Park just to give a short introduction as to where we are in that process.
Thanks, Mark. We don't have a procurement officer in the Katuitt Fire District. The water company uses some engineers for their procurement, and the fire department does their own. So I researched seeing if we could find someone who could assist us in doing requests for consults on the school project. And so I left a message with the Procurement Association of Massachusetts. And Ms. Martinez was one of the people that answered my request, because I'm not sure where we start in this process. I think we start by doing a request for consultation with some architects or engineers to do the, as say for the demolition, to come up with the plan for the demolition. And then they would help us put out that RFP to get prices for a demolition of the school. So Ms. Martinez agreed to come this evening to answer any questions that anyone has about procurement.
So, Ms. Martinez.
Hold on, she's dialing in now with her phone. Miss Martinez.
Okay.
She's having technical difficulties, but I'm admitting her and she's connecting.
Okay.
Okay, try saying all of that again. There she is.
Oh, me?
Yes.
So. Hi, Ms. Martinez. As I explained when I left the information with the Procurement Association, we have now attained a school of 225,000 feet that was given to us. And we're looking to do the proper procurements for one, getting a consultant or whatever we need, say consulting engineers to write the request for proposal for demolition, or also some people are interested in having a look at the school to see what possible uses there could be. And that's another possible consultation, or putting it into both. I don't know if that can be done. And I'm going to leave it to the gentleman to go on and ask you their questions.
No problem.
First of all, Ms. Martinez, thank you for joining us. We are very early in this process, to the point as Fran just pointed out, Ms. Parks just pointed out, that we're not sure what is going to happen with the school, but we are under the understanding that we will need to do requests for proposals for amounts of money over a certain amount. I believe it's $50,000. You might be able to help us with that, depending on what it is we want to do. So we're interested in hearing a little about you and your background, and what it is you think you could help us with.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Janelle V. Martinez. I currently work for the city of Lawrence. I did answer, as Fran said, the, I guess we could say, ad or classification for a consultant for this type of work. If you feel like you can use me as a consultant or someone just to help you guide to the process, I'm obviously going to be available, and I would love to be available for you. I have some experience with demolition, not specifically a historical site, or as this site is I think, as they said, closer to a water well. But we did recently have a procurement of an old paper mill. It was the Merrimack Paper Mill in South Lawrence. The building had been in a fire maybe 5 to 10 years ago, and we just had struggles putting it down. We finally received some funds from DEP to help us with that demolition because of the asbestos issues that were in the building. We had to do a pretty stringent process and make sure obviously everything was cleaned up correctly and done correctly. So I think there will be some similarities there in how the state would want to control how the demolition goes, especially if it's going to affect any other surrounding areas. So I can start the process, or I can start kind of speaking about where you would go. If you have any other questions, I can start there. Or if you want to know more about me, I can do that as well.
What is your background? What is your title with the city of Lawrence? What do you do?
I'm currently the Chief Procurement Officer, so I guide and administer all of our day-to-day purchasing. I mainly focus on purchases over $10,000 and over $50,000. So 10 to 50,000, we're going to have to go out and get 3 quotes and then do a city contract process. Anything over 50,000, we put out a formal bid or an RFP. I work very closely with our DPW team. They have the majority of bids and proposals just because they do so much public work. I've been at the city now. This is starting my 3rd year. Before I moved back to Lawrence, I was living in Las Vegas, where I got my master's degree in sport administration. That's kind of where I started learning about purchasing and finance and business. And so on my way back home, I'm from Lawrence. During the pandemic, I was able to find this position. So a big part of my job as I started and moving on these past few years has just been implementing proper procedure, being transparent with the community, making sure that they feel involved. The way we do that is by opening all our bids publicly in the council chamber, so anyone can come and participate in any of those openings. And just making sure overall we're following the procurement law to the T and doing the best we can for our taxpayer dollars.
Okay, thank you. That's actually very helpful. Where we are right now is we do now currently own this school property and a defunct school that has not been used as a school in several years and has not been used for anything in a couple of years. It's no longer heated, although there still is electricity in it. One possibility is that the building be demolished. We have seen in another nearby town, Marston Mills, a school of the same vintage that was recently demolished, and the documentation that was put together for the bids, that is, the bids that were sent out to interested parties. So what we believe we're looking at and would like your initial thoughts is someone to put together the procurement documents that we would send out to architectural firms saying, for example, we need to demolish a building and we need you, architectural companies, to provide the specifics of exactly how that is to be done, so that when we send out the bids, we are confident that it will be done appropriately. Is that the kind of thing that you do or could do?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you 2 examples. Currently, the city does what is called a house doctor or an on-call engineer and architect. We do that RFP every 3 years. So we do that, and we then evaluate any firms that answer. They could work on specific projects that we can put on the proposal, or we can just keep it open for any time that we might need services. This could be an example. You know, we don't know what to do and we need an engineering firm to kind of help us start the process. The other way would just to be out specifically an RFP with this scope of work that you're looking to complete. We would put in whatever facility specifications you have of the building, the most available information that we can give the firm. And then we would evaluate anyone that answered that wanted to work on this, on the town's behalf as an engineering or an architect. There also is a third avenue, which the actual services for architects and engineers is actually exempt from 30B as a whole. I don't always recommend going through that process especially if you don't feel like you know a firm or trust a firm locally to do that work. But there is that possibility where if it is amendable to the town, that you basically just go straight to contract with an engineering firm or architect that you feel could do this work for you or that you have worked with in the past. Obviously, that would be the quickest way, but the process that would have the most people involved and will have the more, have us go through that evaluation process will be the RFP process. Did you all get that, or was I on mute?
I got it. Yeah.
Could you just, so we have the terminology, the two alternatives are a request for a proposal or what sounded like some kind of waiver for engineering. How would you describe that term? What is that alternative?
So the alternative is the exemption of section 30B, which is 1B16. It's a clear exemption for contracts with architects and engineers, those such professional services that is specific. So in that route, if we chose to do that route, we would essentially contact an architectural or engineering firm and say, this is what we want to do. If you're willing to do it, you know, what is your price? We can negotiate and we can go straight to contract. But I do, like, as I said, recommend the RFP process if you want more people involved and evaluating proposals of these firms. So if you do go through an RFP process, you'd ask for resumes, hourly wages for maybe principal engineers or their assistants. You could be more detailed in your scope of work. But either way, any of those three options, multiple options can be done. It's just depending on how you all would like to proceed.
So essentially the two main avenues would be a request for a proposal or a 30B exemption. Is that fair assessment?
That's how I would do it on my end. Yes. If I was doing. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. This is helpful. You mentioned that you have a master's in, was it civil administration or?
Sports administration. It's really higher education, but I focused in sport administration. I really wanted to work in athletics at the time.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else on the Prudential committee have other questions for Ms. Martinez?
I'm curious, at what rate or what would be the estimated cost would your consulting, what would it cost us? Would it be, and how would it be structured?
I think I would structure it, from what I understand, hourly. From what I've seen through other consultants, I did do some research of what maybe a going rate might be. I believe starting anywhere for $75 an hour, but I would definitely be open to negotiating that. But it really depends on what we're looking at. I think the bulk of the work is going to be done on this proposal process with the engineer and the architect. Once you have them on board, they can actually do the next bid process for you, or like creating the bid specifications for whatever route you want to go. And you would only need the procurement officer to put that bid out for you and then open it. So if you have someone on staff, you're really much, after this first step of the engineer, they could take that role. But if not, you'd need that whole entire process to be carried out and through the contracting phase. But generally your engineer, your house doctor can really get the procurement done for you. So I'd say this is more, if you're looking at a time frame, maybe the 3 to 6 months to get everything started for you. And you'd probably, if you're looking to demolish, maybe next spring, if you can't get anything done in this summer.
Right. Thank you. And then for Ray, or for Fran or whomever, how would we cover this expenditure? What would our funding source be for the employee, such as Ms. Martinez?
Well, there was a project manager as one of the tasks by
That's
the
right.
district.
How much was that? Or-
I believe it was 40,000.
Right.
I'm assuming that that number would be more than enough for you to do what you needed to do to get the architects engaged.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Martinez? Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. I assume, by the way, that the city of Lawrence has no problem with you moonlighting and in your free time to undertake this kind of project. Were we to move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that they'd probably be actually happy for me to continue working on my skills. And I'm generally, as a purchasing agent, open to helping all of other towns and cities. We work pretty closely together in MAPO for the state. So I definitely think they'll be okay with it and hopefully just proud of me for getting some extra work done.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. This has been helpful, as we've said, as you could tell, we're still very preliminary on this, but we appreciate meeting with you.
Thank you
Absolutely.
very much for joining us this evening, Ms. Martinez.
Not a problem. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
You
Thank
also.
Okay, at this point, the next agenda item is the treasurer, Mr. Barone. Can you enlighten us?
As I mentioned in my email to the committee, there are really few results through mid-year December. That is, revenue is substantially down from the budget projections, and expenditures are well within the budget parameters for mid-year. Focusing on revenue, as I said, expenditures are all in line, so I'll focus my comments on revenue.
Can I interrupt you there for 1 minute? You said expenditures are in line. I do see that our target, as you would expect, would be 50% expenditures, and we're at 51%.
The comment I make right to the right of that is adjusted for annual payments. Expenditures are approximately 46.7% of the adjusted budget. We pay a lot of in the first half of the year, so when you adjust for that, it comes back to about 47%.
That is what I expected. Thanks. I want to make sure
Yep.
the audience is aware. And just give us an idea of what those are.
First of all, we pay in August, actually, let me start. We pay our annual retirement contribution for all employees by one. We pay our annual insurance in August. We certain budgeted, and then there are other payments made in the fire department for participate in. There are a few others like stabilization and transfers to our retirement fund, but those are the major ones.
So we're about 3.4%.
Right, the insurance is about 160. The retirement contribution this year was 460,000. That sound right?
About.
Thanks, appreciate it.
So focusing on revenue. As I said, I was going to take a look at looking at where we stood relative to the budget to And that's really looking at two dimensions of the mid-year results. Looking at where we are versus budget, there has been a off in tax collections, so that we're hours behind where we tax collections at the end of December. Receipts for the first half of the year are also down. We're down about $47,000. But the more significant thing with the water department is that the water that was pumped the first half of the year, that's in July through December, is the basis of billing for the last. The water department has just finished probably received your water bill. $1,000 from what it was. So when you look at these things, I was concerned that we would have a shortfall in receipts. And that would so I took a look at the whole year, and that document is the one that I physically passed out around. And things going on, taxes are down versus the budget. The taxes are up, as you all know, from last year. So when we look at last year versus this year, tax collection are not down the budget. So when you look at everything overall, estimating our second half results based on, number one, the billing that water department has done and what we experienced last year, it would appear that down about $200,000. Significant as I thought. The reason is that taxes are up for this year. So even though we are collecting less against budget, we are collecting last year by a slim margin.
Is that a timing issue? Is that
No,
what?
it's not a timing issue. Tax levy issue. In other words, the tax levy this year was higher than the tax levy last year. The amount of taxes that we have imposed taxpayers this year, the total is higher than it was last year. So even though we are not collecting as much against that higher level, we are collecting more than last year at this time. You've raised the bar on the budget. So when you look for collections versus that budget, that shortfall is $1,000. But when you look at last year, that same graph is down here versus this year. So you're collecting more than last year, but less than the budget. Is that clear? I don't think it is. This year, our taxes, and I don't have that number, went up by a certain amount. So if we collect the same amount this year as last year and measure that against the budget or the tax levy, which is the budget, since we've raised the levy, we're short of the levy, having collected the same amount as last year. In fact, we're collecting a little more than last year. But we still have a shortfall against the levy increase.
Lisa?
Critical.
Well,
Budgeted
what
for-
you collect, absolutely. is what you haven't spent. And I can see that when we look at my report. At what I have in surplus cash. Last year, I had much more invested in T-bills than I do this year. Because I don't have the surplus cash. And the reason I don't have the surplus cash is we're not collecting as much. And that also, and the more important thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is that because of the shortfall in the water volume, we are going to continue to be short. We know that they're starting off $300,000 less in water revenue for the second half of this year than last year.
Yeah, I want to get to the water revenue in a minute. I'm still not sure if we're $72,000 below our projected budget. Revenue from tax collections. Why that isn't an issue, we're just planning on funds to make up that difference.
We would have to.
It's not a timing issue.
Can only project our collections or taxes based on what I've seen experience in the last half of last year.
So year over year, I remember, we've had this conversation a few years running, which is that we run into the situation where we have a lag in, it's probably been 2 years or 3 years, a lag in the rate of collection. But we have very few delinquent tax accounts that then end up becoming action, right? I mean, so, I mean, what I see when I see this is we're down 72,000. That's more of an accrual thing. You know what I mean? That we're going to collect that money.
Oh, but that's what I'm confused with, because when I say it's a timing issue, and Ray
Right.
says, no, it's not a timing issue.
So the timing of payments, maybe, because you see what I'm saying, that I believe that we will collect this money.
Legally, ultimately, we will always
Right, we
collect
always get
taxes.
paid.
We
But-
always get paid by either taking the property or the people paying.
Right, now we have,
So in that sense, yes, it is a timing issue, but it
Okay.
is a timing issue beyond
budgetary cycle.
your operating cycle. So it becomes not a timing issue that you would normally speak of. I collected it tomorrow versus today. I might not collect it for 2 years.
But I found, is it not true
Okay,
that we
okay.
have
So,
very few that pass to the lien status, that we have very few that get out that far. And it was not a mean that we have that's being collected via lien. Because I remember a few years ago, or was it last year, we had a situation where we said, oh man, look at what, and it ended up being a clerical, or not a clerical, but it was an accounting. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that. But that, I don't think that was the
Not,
same thing.
I don't
So,
remember the exact details, but all I'm trying to say, I guess, is that I believe, and I don't know how you feel, that I feel confident that we will collect that money
You're absolutely right.
in a reasonable time frame, and if any of it does pass well into the future, to the point where there are gonna be liens put on property, that I think that, at least for that amount, the water revenue is a whole other story, because we bank.
yeah, we need to talk about the water revenue, but
My concern is that we will not collect it by
In
the
a
end of
timely
the
fashion,
fiscal year.
yeah.
And our expenditures are planned.
Yeah.
Within.
as if we will.
Exactly.
Okay, so what
So it's a
happens?
concern.
Yeah. Okay, so that helps me very much with is it a timing issue or not a timing issue? It's not in the sense that we'll ultimately get it. It is in the sense that we may not get it before the end of
Sooner.
the fiscal year. What happens, by the way? We end the fiscal year, we're still down, say, $72,000, and then that money eventually, as you say, we're gonna get it. It's a matter of when. How does that financially, is that applied retroactively to the year in which it should have been?
Because we are cash-based reporter according to the new state rules for municipal accounting. So we will collect this year liens that were imposed 2, 3, 5 years ago. So it is when you collect the cash that we recognize it as revenue.
So if we go to zero and we have expended all of the cash that we have to have a special district meeting to raise funds to meet our obligations.
No, you could,
We could use stabilization money.
no, you could use stabilization money, but that would take a district vote. You could do a bond in anticipation of
Right,
revenue.
bands, which we don't have any bands at the moment, right?
We do. We have a ban for the ambulance
Right,
and for the water department service truck.
right, that's right. Because we had cleared all those up when we
When we
refinanced,
refinanced, correct,
how many years ago that was.
too. So, but the other concerning thing is that the water department, because it was a very wet summer,
Right,
as we all know, pumped 25% less absolutely than they pumped last year. And when the water department issued their bills in January, they were $300,000 less
right,
than they were last
and
year.
that's not reflected on your projections here, obviously. really.
It's reflected
It's
here,
yeah, but not. in-
not in that, no, because this is based on what we've actually collected through
Right.
December. But as I looked at it and saw the shortfall in taxes, and then saw the shortfall in water revenue, it was something we have to watch.
Right,
Should we be taking action at this point? Because as I understand it, the water revenue situation is not gonna improve.
Right.
Um,
It's locked in.
it's locked in at this
Yeah.
point.
We have gotten all the major billing. There'll still be billings for meters, probably billings for the antenna rental, but the major source of water department revenue, water rates, is set for the year. And that's the billing. And I've assumed that we collect all that we build.
right,
We usually do. But if we don't, that's another, again, it's something, it's a warning flag that we have to pay attention to. It is not an emergency. We have a great deal of surplus cash at the present time. I have invested in T-bills at 300,000 in T-bills, which makes up for that in a sense.
Right.
But it is something that we need to watch, and I wanted to alert you to that. And particularly since next meeting, the departments are invited to give their update on their budgets. When I did my estimate for the year, I just took the budget as if we were going to spend everything. What we need to do is hear from the operators what they're actually going to spend.
right. Because they may have surplus or they may be in deficit.
Exactly,
Okay, so when does that happen?
next month.
Next month?
Was there not a recently, what was it, was that last year? I'm getting muddled. For the fire overtime, didn't we have to have, wasn't there an overage that was during this fiscal year? Was that last year?
It was an overage, it was related to overtime, and we had to
We shifted
allocate
something.
money from the reserve
Right.
to cover that.
So if we have, say, if we had, just for the sake of conversation, if we do run this amount, and it's clear that we're gonna run this amount as we move toward the district meeting,
Mhm.
and in order to not have any impact on the tax rate next year, we would, if we were to have a special district meeting and use stabilization funds to pay that, that shortfall. Would that be preferable to just getting a ban and moving it into the next?
If
Fiscal year.
we exhaust our surplus cash, I would recommend using stabilization,
But the surplus that we have in free cash could easily cover this, so we wouldn't have to do any of that,
or you could use free cash
right?
that we generated last year.
Just curious.
Use it on this year, rather than we normally use it
Carry it
for,
over into.
carry it over and use it in the following year.
So it doesn't look great, but it's not, it can be easily, we can easily solve
Yeah,
this.
it is done. Towns can do it.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else that you should, or is of concern to you right now that you'd like to raise, or that,
That's it.
that's enough,
That's enough.
that's enough concern for me?
Plenty, well said.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Perone. Our next agenda item is the Katuitt School. And there are always a number of items. One that was raised previously was there are some individuals or groups who are interested in a tour or inspection, perhaps is the word, of the school property, which in my view, subject to Chief Brown's approval from a safety perspective, we should be allowing.
I have an issue with that.
Okay, me neither. I don't know, Conrad Geiser was the person who raised that with me. I'll go ahead and contact Chief Brown and tell him.
Fran is raising her hand. apparently.
Yeah, Fran, go ahead.
So, well, let me stop before that. As you know, at our last meeting, we discussed broken windows there, set aside $4,000 to fix the broken windows, which were on the add-on ugly green thing. So at that point, it was 2 windows, and after those were boarded over, they broke the one in the middle. So there was a group of 3 windows, they were all broken. So I had Mr. Kerr board those all up and board up any remaining windows in that add-on, so they weren't available to break. So they've moved on to breaking the relatively new double pane, double hung windows, and I had one was broken earlier last week, and I had a phone call yesterday that another one had been broken. So I don't know what we want to, how we want to address that. David's gonna fix the 2 that are the new one that's now broken. I don't know if we want to put up cameras or, you
I
know,
think we should do that.
I think so as well.
Yeah, but they're relatively inexpensive and easy to operate, cloud-based cameras that we could use. Like everybody has on their doors now.
Would
something.
someone have to monitor it and then act if they see vandalism? I mean, what?
You could always go back and look, or there's a deterrent factor as well, if people assume there are stores where people
Yeah.
put up
Okay.
fake cameras, and just to think, people think they're being recorded, they're less likely to do something.
Yeah, I think these tend to be motion activated cameras too,
And
so
you get an alert on
you
your
can
phone or something, and
get alerts. The question is then, now who's responsible
who
for
is responsible?
monitoring the cameras?
From a deterrent perspective, for informational perspective, it doesn't have to be like Lisa wakes up at 3 a.m. when the kids are there smashing the windows and
Yeah.
have to call 911, and then, you know what I mean? But I don't know. There's the other option is to just let them destroy the building through attrition and slowly. but surely.
they sometimes come by car, so
Right.
we'd
You could
be able to get some license plates. So-
how often is the police department going through there? Never.
They're not, no.
Probably never.
You
The
could see
fire,
about,
the fire department's going through on a daily basis, but sometimes they're busy too.
maybe
So,
we could prevail upon the police department to check it periodically.
Right through the window. We'll see it.
So I don't know, but I wouldn't be against cameras.
So, after the new windows were broken, I asked, the deputy chief if he would just take a look inside the building and see if they were doing anything inside that building. And he didn't find any evidence of anybody doing anything inside that building. But what he did find was that more ceiling tiles are down on the floor from the leaking roof, and there are some puddles in the building. So, you know, and it hasn't been heated for 3 years. I'm sure it's filled with mold. I have no intention of ever going back in there again. So as far as the request for a tour, you know, we did tours, several tours that people could avail themselves on a couple of summers ago, during COVID. And so that's,
Well, I tend to agree with you, Fran. I think the building is in bad shape and getting worse. But there are people who continue to say that the building is, quote, is in great shape. It is not in great shape, but this is a situation where I think we need to let people go in and see for themselves that it is not in great shape. It surprises me not at all that the leaks are not improving. And the last time I was in there, it looked like there were animals living in there.
I have no problem with people going in there, as long as they're accompanied by a fire or
Yeah.
someone, if the fire chief wants to do it. And if we want to indemnify ourselves, there's a simple waiver form that we can use.
I will reach out to Conrad, or if there's anyone on this call who wants to contact me to arrange for that. And as I said, subject to, and I assume you're all on board with this, Chief Brown giving the go-ahead to that safety perspective. I've talked to him in the past on this issue, and he seems to be of the view that, you know, as long as they're small groups, you know, controlled and we get in and out of there relatively quickly, that he doesn't see a problem with it. So if there's anyone on this Zoom call who wants to do that, please, you can contact me directly, and we'll go from there. And what do we think about the vandalism? Do we want to try to get cameras? Is that worth? And presumably some signs that say, you know, area under surveillance.
I think so, you know, may not help, but it's not gonna hurt. And
Your lights on?
In order to do that, what do we have to do? We'll just spend out of the budget that we have for maintenance.
well, we have the money from for the school, the $200,000 everybody says that we have.
If we were to fund something like cameras or something like that, that would come just from,
It would come. Most probably the maintenance article.
And that's $40,000?
No.
No?
No, that's, was originally 45. And it's down to, 21,000 present time. There are other articles that, be available at a district meeting to repurpose. For example, we have a $28,000 article for the second environmental study
right?
that we could repurpose for and should repurpose for maintenance. But that would have to wait for a district meeting, but you could run a deficit in that article and then have it cured by district vote to move the money over.
So I have another expenditure for the school. The chief advised that we replace the smoke detectors with heat sensors because there's nothing in the building to burn. But if a fire does start, you know, there won't be smoke, there'll be heat first. And I contacted the Cape Cod Alarm, which is the security company for that building. And replacement of the 16 or 17 sensors would be $1,555. I asked the fire chief to take a look at the proposal and the amount, and he thought that it was fair and, a good proposal.
Fran, if I may interject, one of the reasons, Chief Brown suggested, replacing the smoke detectors with heat detectors is that since the building is not heated, smoke detectors don't always work. So you need to replace them with a heat sensor.
I think I'm perfectly on board with that.
Sounds fine, yeah.
Okay. Fran, can you tell Chief Brown that he can proceed in that fashion, or is he looking for us to do that?
No, I need I'll make a motion that we procure heat sensors for the Katuitt School for a cost of $1,555 from the Cape Cod Alarm Company.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. So I have one more thing. So Saturday, I went to the meeting at Freedom Hall that the people interested in developing the Katuitt Community Center had. The purpose of the meeting was for people to sign a petition to come to the Prudential Committee to say that they want us to do an RFP on the possible uses of the school. It's a little broad, but I suggested that what they could do was they could write an article for the warrant and have it signed by 10 residents, and it could be put on the warrant. And that could be a decision if the voters of the village wanted to do that. My feeling is that if they don't get support, there were only 13 people there, but I was only there for the first 2 hours, first hour. If they don't get support for doing an RFP to look at the possible uses of the school, I don't think there's much sense in doing it. Because it could cost up to $50,000, and I realized that the money was already appropriated, but just because it's appropriated doesn't mean that we have to spend it. And I just personally, I cannot support spending money on that school for an RFP for programs when none of these programs that these people want to do have been. Freedom Hall has been sitting there available for use, free. And, nobody has come and wanted to do these things in Freedom Hall. My other concerns are how long this is going to take with the way they've gone about this. They don't, as far as I know, haven't got a business plan for the school. Their financial plan apparently is that they're going to go out for grants. And their website says that eventually that they will, have the money to take care of the school. Well, I'm not sure that it should be the responsibility of the people in Katuitt to constantly take care of that building as it deteriorates while we're waiting for someone to get the money to repair it. And that's going to be $5 to $6 million. They can't repair it, in stages. It all has to be done. And apparently the Osterville, or a new Osterville recreation building is on the agenda, and they're tearing down the old one. And the Hyannis Community Center is not making money, and it's the town is having, the taxpayers, the town are spending money to support that community center, and we support the senior center, now known as the adult center or whatever it is. So I just have a problem with just going out for an RFP that to look at what uses a school can be put to. Also, I'm still not clear that we can absolutely do that with our enabling legislation. So that's all I have to say about that.
With regard to the Osterville School, just pursuant to the articles that some of you have been reading in the newspaper, I'll try to just briefly summarize. The Osterville Community Center, as I understand it, used to be part of a school of approximately the same vintage as the Katuitt School, which was knocked down with the exception of the gym. And that was turned into a community center. And that is the building to which Fran refers that is now going to be torn down because of, according to the article, maintenance issues, mold issues, and a lack of interest in by anyone in using the building, perhaps because of the maintenance and mold issues. But it is a discouraging bit of information, certainly, for those, contemplating that possibility. I also, I'm not sure if this has been said before, but when we first began this long road with the school, one of the very first, I think the very first presentation we gave, we explained that the town was willing to give us the entire 13-acre property, which included the tennis courts and baseball field. And we declined because we were concerned about the maintenance costs and liability costs for athletic facilities. So the entire deal was structured such that we had to subdivide the property to take out the courts and the baseball field, and get a restrictive covenant by which the town made certain representations to us about how they would maintain that. But it certainly would be more than ironic if we structured the whole deal to make sure we didn't get liability or maintenance costs associated with an athletic facility, only to reverse course and try to save the gym to use as an athletic facility. I guess thank you for the report on the meeting, Fran. We appreciate it. One thing I want to be clear of, pursuant to make sure we're giving people clear information, it takes 10 people on a petition to raise a warrant at a general meeting. I thought it was more than that. I
No,
thought
it's 10 people for an article on the annual district meeting. I believe it's 50 people for an article on a special district meeting.
okay. I believe that's correct. That is
Yes, it's 100 people to set up a special district meeting, and then 50 for an article.
And if we were to, we being the Prudential Committee were to set up a special district meeting, then a petition of 50 voters in Katuitt could propose a warrant at the special district meeting. Is that correct?
An article.
An article.
Yes.
Okay.
The warrant would be from the Prudential.
Okay. So here is what at some point we need to kind of bite the bullet on this. I think I am contemplating the idea and would like to hear from the other committee members if we were to schedule a special district meeting on this topic, at which I think everyone is well aware that the Prudential Committee's view at this point is that the building should be demolished. And the special district meeting would raise that issue, and by means of those bylaw provisions allow, citizens with villagers with, another view of what should be done with that property, to raise that at the special district meeting and we can get some resolution on it if the villagers want to, as Fran puts it, maintain that building until we can do a study of what could possibly be done with it. I guess then that's what we will be charged with doing, but if there is a conclusion that the building, we should move forward with the demolition, then we will move forward in that fashion.
Can I just make a slight correction? My concern is that it's not just moving forward and, you know, until we make a decision what's going to happen with the building. The people that want to take over the building have to raise all the funds, and who knows how long that's going to take. And until that occurs, you know, we're going to have to maintain that building. And it could be, you know, 5-10 years.
And Fran and Seth, what do you think about that
Well,
possibility of calling a special district?
I think that sounds fine. I mean, the reality of the situation is such that even if, you know, we're bound by whatever occurs at a special district meeting. So if that were in fact the case, there would be very little we could do about it in order to, if it were gonna be 5 years, it'd be 5 years, wouldn't it? Because, you know what I mean? So I think that the practical and the most expedient and the most fair way would be to do just that, which is have if the individuals or groups that are interested in that particular eventuality were to raise and have an up or down scenario at a special district meeting, then, I mean, that would be the only way to really put things to bed one way or the other. I don't see any other option other than doing this for another however many meetings we're gonna have.
That's right.
Another 12 public meetings, 15. I mean, we've done this now, as I've said in other meetings, this is what our 36th public meeting where we've discussed this particular topic.
Yeah. Fran, based on what you said, I assume that you are on board with that proposal as well.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think we need to have a decision by vote of all the villagers that's not overwhelmed by just the proponents of it. You know, there was a lady at the meeting on Saturday who wants it demolished and just wants it turned into a green site, because the whole purpose of this initially was to protect the water supply.
There were not as many, not 15, not 20.
13 for the first hour.
Well, just as, you know, just as we said, or that I said, or we said as a committee, whichever it was, that the impetus for that particular plan has to come from that group. And the most direct way to do that is to have a petition, or not to put their own article into a special district meeting. Because that would be the most direct means of doing so, because as we said, we're not interested in doing it.
And I think it does require a separate special district meeting from the annual meeting, because this is something that's liable to have a lot of discussion.
But you know, also though, that for that same token, do you want one? I'm sorry, I've been eating these minutes the whole time. But so for that same reason, it may be better to have it at the annual, because the annual district meeting, because of the timing of it, because of the nature of it, tends to attract most people.
I do agree that attracting a lot of people to the meeting would be important. I do, you know, our annual district meeting tends to run 2.5 hours without something this kind of momentous. So that would be the countervailing.
I mean, I guess more importantly is what time of year it occurs. Because there are registered voters who are not gonna be here until the summertime. Some snowbirds, as you call them, whomever it is, that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, whenever in a situation such as this, it seems best to have as many people as possible, because we could have a special district meeting 2 weeks from now, and there's 1/3 of the people who, the 3,300 people, 3,500 people that are registered to vote here.
Completely on board with that.
Lucky if
Now,
there's a third of them.
you know, you need to get to the specifics, though. I think we're all on board with February, March, probably April, maybe not a great idea, but does it make sense to do it in early May? Separate from the annual district meeting, which is at the end of May?
We could do them a week apart. We could do them a day apart. You know, I mean, we could do them at the beginning and end of the month, or we could do one in July. I mean, I don't know. It's probably better to do it before the annual district meeting.
I think so. Do we want to set a date for that, or do we want to think about it for yet another month?
I think April or May would be best. You know,
Yeah, May's fine with me, or middle May. If you're thinking about seasonal residents, they'll be returned by then, by and large.
All right, let's pick a date in the middle of May and finalize that at our next meeting. And go from there.
That sounds fine to me.
Brian, are you okay with that?
that's fine.
Okay.
Freedom Hall. So, we had Freedom Hall was used Sunday for a large, very large, baby shower of probably at least 60 people. And when Lee went in today to clean up the building, he found some damage to the floors. So, Lisa, are you able to show that picture?
Yeah. Where is that exactly?
Oh, that's my question. I can't see it. Is it possible that it dried out since this morning when Lee was there?
I don't think so. I'll go look tomorrow, but
I didn't look completely. Oh,
it's the floor on the left-hand side of the hall, on the north side of the hall, under the middle window. And some liquid seeped into the
Middle window.
seeped in.
Was that during, we've had a lot of rain lately.
No, it's not rain.
No,
Took the finish off and it seeped into
Oh.
between the end boards.
wine.
Maybe wine.
Yeah, vinegar or something. So what's the question? Do we not return the deposit? Is that the question?
The deposit's on hold and I'm working on getting somebody to come look at it and see about repairing it.
All right, well, I'm certainly on board with that. There's a reason we get these deposits, and
Isn't the deposits not much though, is it?
it's not gonna.
$350.
What are our remedies in the lease or in the agreement?
It doesn't say anything in the agreement about if a cost or something.
Right, so we just eat it. We'll just get that money and then we'll have to pay for the rest.
So, the other two things about the hall is the chair rail is being beaten up by slamming tables and chairs up against it. So, I'd like David Kerr to be able to put up, rubber bumpers. I'll try and save that. And also have him do some touch-up painting in the hall because the paint's been taking a hit. And, the other thing is that he installed, I don't think either of you have been up to the attic. But
No.
when you get up to the stairway that goes to the attic, the stairs are practically straight up. It's a true New England stairway. And there's no handrail. And I had a handrail at my house that I wasn't using, so David installed that. So it's now safe for, the workmen and the people from Franny who take care of our HVAC system to go up there without, risk of falling and breaking their neck.
Thank you.
So,
Not
Yeah.
sure what you mean by rubber bumpers though on the chair rail. What is
but
that entail?
just put a piece of rubber to protect the wood. From being hit. If you go look at the chair rail behind the tables where the tables are, or over on the left side, pull some of those chairs out and look at the
You'll
chair.
just do it in certain spots or around the whole perimeter of the room?
Just around the whole, just on both sides.
Will it look weird?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm wondering what that looks like. I mean, to me, the chair rail is made to get chewed up and then every once in a while you replace the chair rail. This certainly is a beautiful, in my view, beautiful room. I wouldn't want it.
Well, I could have him Bondo the chair rail and then paint it.
I would
I don't know.
prefer that stylistically.
Yeah, I mean, it's up, again, not for me, far be it for me to make fashion choices about the paint and stuff here, but if it were a black line that runs around the outside of the room, it might just look strange.
I think it would look strange.
I don't know, see what he can do. Maybe he can do something pretty. I'm sure
Well,
he's an expert.
There is a black line. Somebody with a pen walked along the wall on the north side of the building and put a black line right where the molding meets the wall paint ceiling white.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's all.
All right,
One public comment.
okay, that's the end of the agenda items. Public comment, please.
Brian has,
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak again. This is Brian Carroll again from Avigate. I'm here with my wife, Katie. And I would just like to ask a clarifying question about the discussion about the special district meeting. Do I understand it correctly that the idea would be that the commission would put forward a warrant that includes an article for the demolition of the building, and then it would be up to registered voters to put forward another petition if they so chose that would kind of take a different direction. So like there would be a warrant article already. There would be an article on the warrant already to kind of pursue a demolition, and then if voters wanted to add a different article taking in a different direction, it would be up to them to file that petition, and the two would be discussed both at the meeting. Do I kind of have that correctly?
That was my thought as to how it would work, and that's Seth, are you?
Yeah.
That's
Well, because so that would give you, what it would allow is the opportunity for us to have a debate about the two options and the merits of each. And then also if we schedule this meeting for the middle of May, whatever, if we do that, it will give an adequate amount of time for preparation for any organization or group of individuals to put together, a relatively concise article to put forward and then have it go before the voters of the district, and where, we're all there and together and vote live. And I think, just in an effort to try and expedite this process, and that might be the most direct way to do it.
Yeah,
I think Seth just summarized it beautifully from my perspective, but particularly when he said this will kind of crystallize kind of what it is exactly people want, and if you have to put it down on paper precisely what it is you're looking for, what the scope of the proposal would be, I think that's worthwhile too. That, and if anyone who wants to do this needs to get 50 signatures of voters, so that'll, you'll need to get some consensus from a group of 50 people. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think that, in my opinion, at any rate, because of the stated position of this committee, that it would be the fairest way to take care of it, and not have people feel that they're not being steamrolled or whatever,
Yeah.
one way or the other.
Yeah,
My battery is dying, and so we need to close this.
Okay, any other public comments? I'm just getting a note
This
that
is
our batteries are
Katie.
dying. So Katie, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Katie Carroll, 81 Abigail Katuitt, and I just wanted to mention that I think it would be prudent to be able to view the building prior to a decision like this being made. If it has deteriorated, assuming it has deteriorated in the 2 or 3 years since it has last been viewed, that would be important information for people making this decision to see the current status of the building. I think it would be very informative.
But I think we can make that happen. Why don't you email me directly and we'll get together with Chief Brown and hopefully set a date.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
Any
all.
other public comment?
I don't see any. And I
Just
need to.
There's a number 5 in the chat.
Say it again.
No, we've handled all of those. I do apologize, but my battery is about to die, and so I need to stop the recording before we use it.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye. Thank you.